I'm recording.
Could I not be wearing my Spartigan?
Okay. Okay, so just taking a look again, the aim is to use illustrations and text to determine the meaning of unknown words and phrases. Mm-hmm. And there's lots of homonyms in this. So if that's our goal, let's check again. Text and illustration on page 8. How do the illustrations help you to understand the meaning of the words pain and pain? Be sure to explain that the illustration shows about each word, tell what each word means. This is some feedback that we talked about on the LP as well, in terms of leading too much. Tell me just your thoughts in terms of that, about including this.
Well, I feel like it provides access for some of the kids who might have a harder time, but I can see how for kids who are on level and above level that could be an unnecessary scaffold, so maybe it's something we should just include in the modified IP?
Yep, let's do that.
Okay.
Modified IP.
And I would actually adjust this also, reading it again, to the illustration and the text.
Yep, to match the objective. Mm-hmm. Great. Looks aligned. Okay, so going back to the text, we want to find how does it help you understand the meaning of pain and pain. And so we have this illustration here. What does the broken window feel? The pain in the pain. Okay. Talk to me about how would we start this off? What would be the first sentence of this response?
I think the response could actually be put together in both ways, depending on how kids think. They might start at talking about what they see in the picture, and then go into explaining how that helps them to understand the words pain and pain, or some kids it might make more sense to define the words first and then explain what they see in the illustration. I'm not sure that the sequence matters here,
so let's just
touch on both pieces.
Great. So let's just bullet out what are the two pieces that they need to have, and also thinking through like your TA results and like what you're pushing kids to in terms of like level 4 proficiency. What is that criteria again? Level 4. So last time we did this when we did it with Duffy, we talked about this is what a written response requires, because that was what the deficiency was in a TA. So like 4 written responses, they should always include what? What was the CFS for that?
That they need to use their own words. They need to refer explicitly to the text in as many ways as connect to the response. So with like as much evidence as possible. And they need to explain how their evidence connects to their response.
Okay, so then we'll just use this as our, again, like this is our overarching CFS for our response. Okay, so what are the two components? What's the first one?
Now that we went back to that, I'm thinking of a third again. Okay. So they need to make a general statement about how the illustrations help them understand the words to start. Which might sound like the illustration helps me to understand the words pain and pain because it shows me what it looks like to have a pain in the pain.
Okay. Slower. The illustration helped me to
understand the words because it showed me what it looks like. To have a pain in the pain.
So that's our general statement.
Something to that effect. I think the most important thing is show me what it looks like.
Yep.
Right.
So we can highlight that. I'll let you write the rest. Okay. So now what is the other piece of that's included in there?
They need to define pain is a feeling when you're hurt. And pain is a window or part of a window.
And these spellings have to correctly match. Yay
Yes.
or nay?
Otherwise, yes.
Okay.
Otherwise, the response to the riddle doesn't make sense. So they should be mentally checking it in context. And then they need to discuss in the illustration that they see that the window is broken. They may or may not mention by the ball. They need to discuss that the window is crying or looks upset. And they need to discuss the fact that the hurt is in the window. So in the is actually an important text reference here.
Why is that?
Because on otherwise I think that they might get stuck in something that's a bit too general.
For example,
like
what?
they might say like pain is when you're hurt, and pain A-N-E is like how you're feeling. Just going back to what the riddle asks, it doesn't actually give you a definition for pain A-N-E. The definition comes from the fact that the hole and the place that's hurting is in the window rather than on the girl.
Absolutely. So, okay, so now let's check it. Does it match your criteria? General statement, their own words.
Yes.
Refer to text in as many as possible. Yep.
This part.
Explain.
So I need to add on here. This part we need to have a because to make the connection, right? Pain is the feeling when you're hurt because the window is upset and has a hole.
Yep.
And pain is the window or part of a window because the hole is in the window.
Great. So I feel confident that this is what needs to be part of a 4. Do you agree?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so what about, so given this, like, what are the implications for instruction? Like, what are the things that you need to make sure kids are getting before they get to IP with all of these other examples?
I mean, I think that they need to be thinking very carefully about which words in the riddle or in the answer contribute to their understanding of the words. So that might look like in a GP going through and being like, does the word what help us understand either word? Does the word does help us understand either word? And like, just, I mean, for most words probably there won't be much discussion around it, but particularly getting down to like something where the preposition is important or a word that they would view as smaller and less important, discussion around how that word actually is really important. I think also like making sure that they're referring to both the text and the illustrations when they're trying to figure out what the homonym means, and that one piece is one piece by itself isn't always going to be enough.
Yep. what are the questions that you would ask? Like, what's the exact questions? Because I think this is important. Like, which words help you to understand? Like, what exactly would you ask in the instruction for, you know, like one of these things? Would you give them what and does? Would you give them the words in the text? And, like, again, the goal...
I mean, I wouldn't do it with this page, but I would do it with a different page where it was equally important, like the pale example. It asks what is a scared bucket, and the answer is a pale, which you can't get just from the riddle. You need to also look at the picture and see that the pale is afraid of the ghost, but it turns white as a result. So I'd walk through a similar example, and then also talk. So I would ask the exact question, like, does this word help us understand? How do you see it in the picture? Does this word understand? How do you see it in the picture?
So you'd actually point to the word.
I would probably go word by word to start. Given the fact that there's so little text on each page, it's just a riddle, I think that that's manageable and draws appropriate attention to the amount of, like, or it's appropriately detailed for the amount of attention that they need to pay to distinguish between homonyms.
So I think the key was, you said to start, you're going to go word by word. What does the end of GP look like when you're starting to release? Like, you have a lot of examples. Like, what
it's like which words are most important? How do those connect to the picture at the end?
Which words are most important? How does it connect to the picture? To me, again, that's not even, like, that's still, like, that's getting further of putting the heavy lifting on the kids. Like, push yourself further. What does the question sound like to even get the kids even more of doing the work?
What do the words mean? How do you know?
Potentially. What do the words mean? How do you know? Yeah, because that is the assessment, right?
Yeah.
So, like, getting them to, like, actually do the work of what do the actual homonyms mean? What are the different meanings of the words? How do you know is again, that's expectation within here to provide the evidence. They should be able to identify. The how do you know is, versus the prior experience where you're telling me identify the words. Yeah. So, like, knowing that those, right now we just talked about 3 different levels of scaffold, and making sure that, like, kids do have the opportunity to, like, struggle at least before you release them to it, because otherwise they're not going to you're not going to get this in your response. And I think that this was key too. Like, this is the part that of the CFS that's going to be hardest for kids to get on their own.
Great.
Was this helpful?
Yeah, definitely. I'll be sure to do that.
What implications did this session have for your future planning?
I think it helped me think through some ways of, like, more scaffolded GP rather than, like, one example of us trying it together. Walking through maybe a couple of different examples with different levels of scaffolds before having them try it by themselves, to make sure that we're getting not just something that's, like, generally on target, but really completely meets the CFS.
Good job, you.
And cut.